Good evening and welcome to Around the Table. It's Friday night, and you know what that means. It means it's time for you to pull up your seats and let's have table talk. On Friday nights, I get so excited because I always have, I always say it, the most special guest. But tonight, my guest is the most special guest. I am Vision Coach Alicia, and I am super excited to have you come and sit around the table with me. Listen, grab your drinks, start to share this broadcast out, and let's get some other people here with us tonight because I'm about to have a conversation. I don't know for sure where it's going to go because me and this person have been knowing each other for such a long time. But tonight, I am bringing her in as my special guest so that we can have table talk. So let me bring her in. Vasilia, come on in. Hi, V.
Hey!
How are you?
I am absolutely wonderful. And thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on to this special show. I really appreciate it.
I am so glad that you found time in your busy schedule to come on my show. I am super duper excited that you said yes. That's the important thing for me that I get people that say yes. And thank you for saying yes. Listen, everyone. Tonight we are going to have a great show and I want you to be ready. Do you have something to drink, V? What do you have tonight?
Grand Marnier.
Okay, I have me some. Can you guess?
Knowing you, some pineapple juice or something.
This is green goddess tonight.
Green
And
guy.
so I am so excited because on this show, I find so much out about people that I think that I know. And I'm hoping tonight that I could find some things about you because this is a place for authors, it's a place for coaches, it's a place for women in business, it's a place for speakers and for small businesses as well. And so as we get into this conversation tonight, we're going to roll the years back a little bit and then we're going to move forward. So, Basilia, I'm in California and you're originally from California. And I
Yeah.
had never heard of this place that you are from until I met you, Lake Elsinore. I was, what is Lake Elsinore? And
Yeah.
I remember all those years ago when I met you and you said you was from Lake Elsinore, I actually looked it up because I had no idea where it was. So tell me a little bit about your roots in Lake Elsinore. Were you born there in that area? Give me some background.
Okay, so well, thank you again for inviting me on the show. And I look forward to having great conversation with you. So originally I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I was
Okay.
born. And so
Okay.
I was raised in California. So I came to California at the age of 11 and Lake Elsinore.
Okay.
I
Okay.
graduated from Lake Elsinore High School.
Okay.
So those are my old stomping grounds, and my family is still in. Some of my family is still in Lake Elsinore. So yeah, it's just right outside of Riverside, California.
Great. See, because when I tell people sometimes I live in Victorville, California,
Yeah,
what? What?
right,
Where? And I always say, listen, you have to pass me to go to Las Vegas if you're going to gamble. And
right.
so that's the way I get people to know where I am in Victorville, but I call it Victoryville because this is the place that I found myself thriving for the last 22 years. I've been in California about 30 some years from the Virgin Islands, but this is where I have been. Yeah, I've taken a sabbatical, went back to the Virgin Islands, but this is where I am. So it's always good to know where we began. And you and I, our beginning was the beauty industry. We
30,
connected.
34 years ago.
Ooh, girl, I'm glad that you can say it because honey, 34 years ago. So do we know each other for 34 years?
Yes, we've known each other for 34 years. Yes,
Wow. And
yes,
listen, in those 34 years, we have not always seen each other, have not always been with each other, but we don't miss a beat when we connect. And
exactly, exactly.
I
We
just
always kept up with each other, no
with
matter
each
what,
other
no
always.
matter who moved where or what we were doing,
Yes, yes,
whatever.
yes.
we've always kept up with each other. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I stalk you. I
Oh,
stalk you on Facebook. I got to know what my girl doing, so I stalk you on Facebook. So let's keep at this place we're at. So we met each other in the beauty business.
yes.
We were working together,
Worlds
and
occur.
Lord have mercy, Vasilia Tinde. I am telling you, I'm so glad you have Roberts at the back of your name now because I know a whole
When I
different.
met you, I was Hope. Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hope.
Oh, and then you got married.
Yep. And then I became
And
Cindy. Then I
yeah,
became a Roberts.
yes, we went through some transitions, but in all of that time, we were growing. In all of that time, we were seeking what it was that we really were to become. Did we meet at Soft Sheen Products, or
No,
was it
we
Worlds of
met
Curls?
at no, we met at Worlds of Curls.
It was Worlds of Curls.
What was the
Yeah,
name of the cosmetic line?
Simply Satin.
Simply Satin. That's who we were.
Simply Satin Cosmetics. And I think at that time I was your supervisor or something.
Yes, yes. You're
Yeah.
my supervisor
But
there. Became my manager at the
yes,
company. Yes, yes.
yes, but
So
you
you were my
all
boss. So you always been a boss lady.
so I know that you're not surprised that the name of my company is Boss Business Coaching. But Vasilia, when I got the name of my company, I was praying one day and saying, God, I want to make sure that I am honoring you in what I did. And he said, it's Boss Business because you are not the boss, I am. I said, ooh. And so
What?
that's how I got the name Boss Business. But I have always tried to show up as a boss, even when I didn't know what I was doing sometimes. But it was because of people like you that made me look good as a
Oh,
boss,
really?
that
That's
made me look good. Sometimes I had to slap that hand, and get you, but you always came through for me. So we were selling cosmetics, and we were selling it into the big box stores,
yes. At
right?
that time, it was Thrifties and Eckerts and Longs and all of those stores that
Yes.
I don't even know if they exist in California anymore.
Most of them don't. And I recently I went to Northern California, which is where you lived, and I went into one of the areas that we it was called Safeway.
Oh yeah.
Safeway. And I thought about, I looked at the store, it just had the sign, and I thought about the past. So, sometimes we have to really, really catch up with our past to move to the future.
Yes.
And I looked at from where we both have come, what we've done, what we've been through. Since then, I worked for other companies. I went to Johnson Publishing Company, which was um, Ebony Jet magazine. I went to Soft Sheen
You
Product.
brought me to Ebony Cosmetics
I
too.
brought you with me. That's
Yes.
right. I told you because you were always someone that I knew would end up somewhere other than where other people just left off. So I
Right.
always knew that Vasilia, that there was so much more in her. She just had to be disciplined a little bit in some areas in her life. But look at you today, and we'll
You
go
you
forward
you
into
helped
that.
you helped to groom me, to teach me more about temperament. You took a little of the ghetto-ness out of me. Taught me how to be in a meeting amongst managers and how to conduct myself. You taught me makeup application.
Girl, don't make me go get some tissue.
So sometimes people don't know how they're touching someone's life, but you have always touched my life because one of the things that you have done when I worked up under you, and then even as a friend, even when we don't see each other for a few years and we reconnect, all you do is pour positivity, words of encouragement, love, God, all those things into people. But you always poured into me. You always people don't know. Hell, you taught me how to write my sentences correctly, how to fill out my forms. You go, no, you don't do this. You don't. I never forget. You said you don't write like you speak, because I
Mm.
used to just say, I went to the store and we put this on the shelf. He's like, no, I merchandised and we did, you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
you taught me those things
Woo.
30
Vasilia,
something years ago.
man, I am so blown away right now because you're absolutely right. You don't know the impact that you have on people's lives. And I can go and say the same thing because as I move through life, as I move through that industry, I stopped at 22 years. I was in the industry for 22 years, and I have reached back to three women that really shifted and changed my life in that industry, that grew me up and got me to really understand that there was more for me. Do you remember those beauty shows?
Yes. And that's one of the things that people don't understand. Like these young people in the barber industry where I am now, I say, you guys, I've been doing this thing for almost 40 years. I've been doing this. So Bronner Brothers shows and all of those shows and Cosmoprof, which was BBSI back in the day, and
Yes,
all of those things. I've done trade shows.
yes.
Been in this,
Pioneers.
yeah,
We were actually in the pioneering time of the industry. And what
yeah,
people don't realize is how important the Black business in the beauty industry was. I remember listening to stories about how relaxers first started being made in people's tubs in their
yeah,
homes as they were experimenting, watching businesses and people become millionaires who started by selling product out of the trunk of their car. People who sweated and really blazed the way for people like us to come, and now still people like you 40 something years later in this industry who is still looking back and helping others to grow. One of the things that I came across lately that really fascinated me, there's this group and it's called Black Beauty Supplies, and it's this movement where this young lady, man, she's really reviving Black beauty supplies. And I'm like, okay, because me and you both being in this industry, we know that it was taken over and controlled by other people, the Asians, let's just say it.
yeah,
And a lot of the Black owned businesses just crumbled, subsided. But I remember as traveling to make sure and ensure, and then I think my greatest achievement was being involved in creating and giving input into the birth of Mazani,
yeah.
which was a product that was just so awesome that took us into a different place in the industry, because when it became built and looked upon as a prized possession, it was then sold to L'Oreal. Let me just say it. And
Yeah.
then, the industry, that's when I started to see and look at the industry different. But it gives me such great pleasure to look and see, as I look at that group, to look and see people like you, to look and see, I have a few distributors that I still call Brochet's Beauty Supply in Texas.
They're good friends of mine, very good friends of mine.
Yes, who's still alive. She came to my presidential award when I was awarded it. These are
Really?
relationships that I have built, relationships with you, relationships with people like that who still are in this industry, who understand that there's still a space and there's still a place. So as we go through that for a minute, you did your own thing in a different way. Take me back to before you started Clutch Beauty Supply. What were you doing in the industry at that time?
When I started Clutch Barbers, before I started Clutch Barber Supply,
Barber.
I
Mhm.
was actually with Empress Hair Care Products. I'm director of sales for Empress Hair Care Products. And I was actually with them for 14 years. I started off as a director of sales. I think I stayed in that position maybe for 7 or 8 years. And then I became a broker. So you actually gave me the Mazzani line for North Texas too. So you've done a
Yep,
lot
I
to help
remember.
me. So
Man,
so I was with them, and what happened was, what I've learned in this journey is that we pour so much into these companies, into making them successful, into building their brands. We used to work our tails off away from
yes,
our kids, traveling all the time, making sure that we were in all of these towns, making sure products were on the shelf, and meeting with distributors and suppliers and all that good stuff. But one of the things that I learned after my journey with Empress Hair Care, when they were closing the doors, I knew then that I didn't want to work for anyone else. I just didn't know how. I didn't know what my next process was going to be, what my journey was going to be. But I knew that I had built something for them, and I knew that it was time for me to pour into
yes,
Vistoria and build something for myself. And when they were closing, how I got into that barber supply business was my niece wanted me to start selling hair as like my alternative of, I knew the company was closing. So it was like, what's next?
yes.
I didn't want to go through who am I going to interview with? Who am I going to try to get a job with? Even then, and that's been 9 years ago, I felt old. So I was like, what's
Ooh,
but she wanted me to sell hair. And what happened was my contact for hair was someone from the industry that I had contact when I was working for Empress. He bought product from me. He had a beauty supply in Pittsburgh, but I knew he had started selling hair. And when I called him, I was telling him, hey, I think I want to, get into the hair side of the business, da, da, da. Who are some contacts? And he's like, you know what? He said, I was going to sell hair. He said, but I'm, I have a he said, I have a mobile beauty supply, but all I focus on are barbers. And I was like, barbers? I said, you're not going to make any money. All they use is oil sheen, clippers and oil sheen. There is no money in that. And he said, because he always called me V, he said, V, I'm making money. He said, how much do you have to invest? I said, $500. And that's how I got started.
wow.
I literally, one of the advantages that I had over people, I would say, that would get it, I knew, we had come from the industry, so we knew where all the resources are.
This
We
work.
know where the suppliers, the big suppliers, where I can get my product from. I knew
Yes,
that. And what I've learned from working from the Dudleys of the world, the Worlds of Curls, the Ebony Cosmetics, is how to go into a market and build out a territory. We knew that. We developed
yes,
right ourselves. We knew every week we had to be consistent. You go to this place, you go to that. Next week, you go to this place, you go to that. And that's what I did. I used those tools, everything that I had learned in this industry, and I just start showing up. Hey, my name is Vasilia. At the time, my first name was, I was called Amazon Mobile Barber Supply. Then I went to A1 Barber Supply when my son came on board. And then how I became Clutch Barber Supply
uh-huh,
is that my barbers named me, because as I was, going to them, and these young people, they use all this slang, and one day they used to call me Miss Clutch. And so one day, the young lady had paid the transaction, and I said, "Oh, I didn't see my name," because she was showing me on her phone. I said, oh, I didn't see my name. She said, oh, because I have you programmed as Miss Clutch. I said, that's it. I went to the car. I told my son we're Clutch Barber Supply from now on.
Wow.
That's how
Listen,
Clutch.
you just gave a mini masterclass in business. Number one, you said that the opportunity was there, and you knew that in order to get into this, you had to invest. A
Mhm.
lot of times people don't think that $500 is an investment into getting started. And when you took that opportunity and took that chance, and you didn't say to him, I don't have anything. We've got to know what's in our hand. What
Yeah,
do you have right now that can take you to the next level, the next place? And invest in that $500 took you
yeah.
somewhere else. So, how long have you been in business as Clutch Beauty Supply?
So as Clutch
Clutch
Barber,
Barber
and
Beauty.
remember, we were the first, I am the first concept in Dallas, Texas area
Hmm.
that is a barber supply. Everyone is a beauty supply. They
Yeah,
sell, I don't have no hair. You're not going to find no nail polish. You're not going to find
no,
anything. Mine is strictly for barbers. And I was the first in this market to do that.
niching down, sticking to what you know. That reminded me of my concept when I lived in the Virgin Islands at 23 years old, and I invested with a couple into a business, and all we saw was handbags, every kind of handbags, from $10 to $20,000. Judith Lieber was a top brand at that time. And I remember the one day when one of the partners said to me, well, let's start carrying accessories and stuff. And somehow it just didn't hit me. I said to her, listen, you have to stick with what you got and you know it's working. If you want to carry accessories, there's a couple of empty stores 2 doors down. Why don't you go and find out? And that's what she did. So then we had purse strings on one side, and then we had purse strings accessories. Because when we try to do too much, when we try to mix things sometimes instead of concentrating on what you listen, I'm not trying to bring everybody on my show.
Right.
This show is exclusively for authors, for speakers, for entrepreneurs. I'm not trying to bring a playwright on my show. I mean, it's an entrepreneur, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So we have to understand to stick with formulas that work. So congratulations that you are the pioneer.
Yes.
You have set the bar in Texas. Where exactly in Texas is your
My store is in Grand Prairie, Texas. So that's just right outside of Dallas.
right outside of Dallas,
Yeah. I'm
Texas?
like 5 minutes.
Okay.
You know,
So,
it's like
yeah,
one of those small in between, Dallas and
yeah.
Arlington.
I
Yeah.
remember running the streets of Dallas with you a few times. I
Yeah.
re- I'm telling you, the grind, and we've had the opportunity to just mention to ourselves um how much older we are now than
Yeah.
we were then, but how much wisdom have we learned, how many things that we have done that we are proud of, that
Right.
we have stuck and we've stayed, that we have not gone back. When I retired from um L'Oreal, I was scared
Right.
because I didn't really voluntarily retired.
Right.
You know, there was a conflict and they let me go. And I
Right.
was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But I have never looked back, and I have never worked for anyone since 2009 because I always knew that I was called for more than what I was doing, giving them everything, meeting those $5 million quotas a year and seeing that, yeah, you get a bonus, but what is it that you're investing in yourself? And
Right.
so when you start to look at entrepreneurs and the amount of time that we put in for ourselves to build our businesses, it is value added because we've done it for so long for other people. And
Exactly.
it's one of the biggest segments of life right now, that people are becoming entrepreneurs and doing, especially women who have stepped out and stepped up and doing their thing. So let's talk.
I so much easier. It's so much. easier now. And I just think we have more of a leveled playing field just because of social media.
Oh, yes.
It's because you have access to advertising and promoting and talking to your peers, your own people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I see how even social media itself has allowed the barber industry to grow. You know, when we were in the industry many years ago, no one thought of products for men. No one wanted to. I remember when Proline tried it with Barber Select,
Yes.
and the product flopped. You
Yes.
Barbers didn't care about it. You know, they only use clipper and oil sheen and da da da. But now look at it.
Yes.
Men care more about personal grooming. Barbers have now entered into a field that they can realistically not like you know shooting for the stars. They can realistically get into this industry and make six figures within a couple of years. Really,
That's right.
not it's not far fetched at all. A lot of
Yes.
barbers are making money. And you
Yes.
know, back in the day, you used to talk about barbers, you'd be like, oh, he broke. He don't. But
Yes.
now these barbers are charging $40, $50. You equate that. That's $40, $50 an hour they're being paid.
Come on. Come
Just think
on.
about the ones that are charging $100, $65. So the industry has changed for the industry that I'm in, but also for women or anyone that's in business, technology, social media, everything has changed, and you have to be willing to change with times.
Yes.
Only people that get stuck and don't grow is if you're not willing to adapt to change, because change is coming. Whether we want to or not, that's just the evolution of the world, right? It has to,
Yes.
it has to.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I feel like I got into a business at the just at the perfect time.
The
All,
appointed time.
what if I wasn't open?
Mm.
What if I had the opportunity? I mean, the mindset of no, I ain't gonna make no money. No, I'm not sending you $500. No, da da da.
Yes.
I will say this to be honest and transparent. I was going through a tough time financially. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what my next steps were. So I was
Mm-hmm.
hungry. I was driven. I wanted to make it work. But this has been the easiest journey ever
Wow.
to grow a business, to literally, and I think this is another thing. We don't take enough credit. We don't pat ourselves on the back enough about, hey, you really
Come
did
on.
do that.
Come
You really
on. Come on,
make
sis.
dollars
Yes.
with consistency, showing up.
Yes.
Now you have a store. Now you have two trucks on the road. Now you get another truck. You built $1 million business.
Come on. Come on.
That's
And is your sons involved in your business?
both of my sons.
See, legacy. And
Yes.
that is what we have to really look at, we talked briefly about our sons, and recently my son came to me with an idea from being a medical carrier and what he's thinking, and you've got to listen to the ideas of those that are coming after you, because he has a daughter. And so when we start to think about, we're not just doing it for us, but
Right.
we're doing it for those that are going to come after, our grandkids, our great grandkids. We may be gone when them great
Right.
grandkids come, but at least we know. But what the key thing here is that both your sons see the vision.
Yes.
No,
One of them I had
also,
to drag. Don't get me wrong. I had to
I think
pull
I
them.
could guess which one.
I had, I had to pull them and drag them. My
Ye-
oldest son, it was a no-brainer. He had been working in corporate America. He had been with a company. He was used to making six figures. He worked for a manufacturing company that, manufactured airplane parts. But there were two layoffs. And that second layoff, I said, son, I think I'm on to something. Why don't you try what I'm doing? He's like,
Yes.
Mom, you always been in sales. You can do that. I'm not good at sales, da da da. I said, we're not selling, we're providing a service.
Come on. There you go.
And that was it. He worked with me for 1 week up here. I went to Houston, worked with him for I think 2 or 3 days. And I think after my son's first full year in the business, he matched me in sales. And at that time, just in our cars alone, maybe back then we were doing about 200,000, 150, 200,000.
Yes.
But he can easily, just in his mobile unit, do a 500,000.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about what it's like to, you said you have two trucks or three?
Okay, so my I still do a route sales. I
Okay.
do a route 3 days a week. So
Okay.
that's considered one truck. Then we have another transit, right?
Okay.
That's the one my son and my nephew runs. And then I just purchased another truck yesterday. So,
Congratulations, growth, girl.
and that
Yeah.
doesn't include my son who runs a mobile unit in Houston. And
Okay.
my sister does it part-time in Huntsville, Alabama. I mean
So,
Huntsville, Texas.
so you have territories laid out. See, this is what I'm saying. So tell me a little bit about the mobile business and how that works.
You know what? I would have to say that it works so easy for me because I come from Dudley Products. And remember Dudley Products,
Yeah.
the door,
Yes.
salon to salon, da da da.
Yeah. Open
So
up that trunk.
yeah. And so we have the product in our cars. We stock
Yes.
up. We show
Yes.
up at the barber shops. And hey, Clutch Barber Supply. They come out to the car or tell you what they need. And what we've done is we've brought back the full service industry. Because
Hmm.
remember, in the professional industry, it always been delivery, showing up to
Yes.
the shops, delivering the product. It's no different than Mazzani and all of the, Dudleys and all those professional brands. We're the same thing, but to barbers who had never had that service before.
Come on, come on. So what does that industry look like right now for you barbers supplies? Um, what does it look like
What do you
right
mean?
now? Um, is it catching on in different places? I know in Houston because I know Brochet's does it.
Right. Brichets have been doing it for years.
Yes,
I didn't know that
but
when
not
well,
just
when
but
I
not
opened
just for
up an
barbers.
new Brichets from Empress Hair Care. But I didn't know them to run trucks until
Right.
we start becoming, familiar and acquainted with them. Um,
Yes.
and but even Brent Shays was never a barber supply. They're a beauty supply with barber.
Beauty. Right.
The difference with me is that I'm strictly barber.
So
But
are you the only strict
no,
barber that you
not,
know? That's
not
what I'm trying to
okay,
get at. Okay.
not or everybody has a truck now.
Okay.
But you know what I used to when they first started like getting into the industry, at first, Alicia, I was so like scared or intimidated, or are they gonna take this? Or you know what I mean? You know how it's competition, right?
Yes. Yes.
And as I have calmed down, I've learned that this is big enough for all of us
Wow.
because there was no way I by myself could service all of the Metroplex. How could I? How could I? I'm only one person.
No
There's
way.
no way. There's no way. So
Yes.
people have gotten into it. Yes, you have to adjust to competition because they may affect, yourselves. There are some places where like people have made a choice. Hey, maybe they don't do business with Clutch anymore. They've decided to go with the other people that show up.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what I do? I find somebody else. I go where I'm wanted,
One.
needed, and appreciated.
Yes.
I don't
Celebrated.
come for any
Yes.
business much out here. A
Yes.
barbershop, barber school open up every day. So yes, competition is sometimes scary or and or intimidating. But all you do is pivot, figure it out, see
Yes.
what they're doing, see if you need to make any adjustments. If not, you just keep moving on and keep building. And it has to
Okay.
stop our flow. It has to stop our flow. And I would say since I've been doing, I'm 9 years now with me, because I started off mobile 5 years before I opened up the store.
Okay.
It took 5 years, and after our fifth year, I think the truck was doing. I remember it was doing like it did 328,000, and I told my husband, "There's no way for me to grow this." I said because I'm only one person. I can't max it out anymore. I can only go where I go. And I said,
Yes.
time for us to open up a store.
Hmm.
And he believed in me and trust me enough to, partner with me, help me fund it. And we opened up a store. And I never stopped doing what, how I built this business. So I still service those same people. I've been servicing my clients now for 9 years.
My goodness. So, Basilia, do you think someone can actually start this type of business that you're doing with a $500 investment?
It may be a little bit, it'll be challenging.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm like, you stepped out at faith and did it with $500, but times have changed. So so to someone that may be thinking about doing a business like this, what advice would you give them?
I would say if you want to do this particular business, definitely you're going to have some funds,
Okay.
maybe a couple of $1,000s, not a whole.
Hmm.
And it really depends on where your supplier is.
Okay.
You have to have a supplier that's close enough to you that even if you have to go every single day. When I got into this business, I went to the suppliers every day because I didn't have the cash, right? So that means I was constantly flipping and turning
Sure.
that
Yeah.
money.
Flipping houses, flipping product. Come on.
So
Wow.
I was flipping clippers.
Yeah. Clippers. So is
Yeah.
that the
So
item that you started with? Just clippers?
no, I started with clippers was the last thing. I only had a few clippers when I started. So
Interesting.
it was more of cool care, oil sheen, lineup spray, gels, all of the things that they use every day anyway. Though
Yeah.
that's where you're going to make your money. Your clippers and stuff for your bonus. But barbers,
Wow. Okay.
they use so much others, neck strips. They have to, there's certain things they have to have no matter what. And that's neck strip, cool care, and oil sheen. What's the other one? Neck strip, aftershave.
Hmm.
Every cut they use those things. Every single cut.
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. I am telling you, from where we started to where you are now, Miss V, I salute you with all the grace of God, because I know that it is not easy to run a business.
I know that for sure. For me, I could not have done it without the support of my husband and my family and friends. That, having that support system is extremely, extremely important to make sure that you are staying on point, to make sure that you are aligning yourself properly, giving you those words of encouragement, making sure that you don't give up. I couldn't have done any of this without my husband, and
Wow.
I'm blessed
That
that
is
husband that's
so awesome. Well,
so
I am telling you, this has been such a great conversation after 34 years,
yes,
where both of us are doing what we are called to do. Obviously, God has really allowed us to come to ourselves and
yeah.
be who we are. So, Ms. V, I want to say thank you so very much for being my guest tonight and giving us this insight into beauty, the barber supply
Right,
industry, not the beauty supply. It
right.
is certainly different, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate your time tonight. Is there any last thing that you would like to say to our audience before we leave tonight?
I would just tell anyone that's an entrepreneur that's out there, just stay focused, stay with it. Look at your business, look at your business model, and make sure one that is working for you. But most importantly, don't give up and don't get caught up in thinking, oh, I can't do anything unless I have all of this. It doesn't take all of that. It doesn't take all of that money. It doesn't take having all of the right paperwork, the right get out there. I'm a person, throw things up against the wall and see if it sticks. And you know, I have tried a lot of things.
Yes,
It's sticking.
it's sticking. Well, congratulations. Listen, my guest this evening is Vasilia Tende Roberts. She is in Dallas in the Grand Prairie area. She has Clutch.
Yeah.
Oh, Barber Supply. And she started it from the ground up. And after 9 years, she's here as an entrepreneur. So if she can do it, she's telling you that you are able to do it as well. So whatever dream you have within you, do what she says, throw it up against the wall and see and make it stick. Thank you so much, Ms. V, for being my guest this evening. I absolutely love you, and I will be speaking to you real soon. God bless you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you and love you too.
Listen, we've got to really enter into who we are and what we are designed to become. And so, if you are thinking about being an entrepreneur, do your homework. You heard what she said. It does not take all of that. She started with $500. I remember way back when I started to work for Johnson Publishing Company, Mr. John H. Johnson told the same story. He sold his mother's furniture for $500 and invested in his business, and it became a multi. Do y'all remember? Some of you may not be old enough, but to remember there were Ebony, there was Jet Magazine, there was different things. Essence Magazine is still on the market. That's a completely different company. There are these companies who invested little and it has become much. So if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, please make sure that you're willing to invest in yourself. And most of all, you're willing to stay committed and doing the work. I am Vision Coach Alicia, and thank you so much for coming in this Friday evening and sitting with me around the table. So until next week, Friday, as my cousin Lorraine always says, have a great day today and a better one tomorrow. Thank you so much for viewing.